On October 30th, 1995, the caretaker at Willow Grove Cemetery, located in Fountain City, Indiana, made a startling discovery. While patrolling the cemetery grounds, he saw a gray 1989 Pontiac Grand Prix parked near the back of the property. When he peered into the vehicle, he discovered that a woman was slumped over in the driver's seat. She had been shot in the head. She had been discovered just after 11 in the morning. When the police started to investigate the woman's death, they discovered that the victim was 48-year-old Wilma Cheeks. She was a local resident who lived just a few minutes' drive away. Some of Wilma's money was missing. She had last been seen by her family earlier that morning. Wilma had walked her youngest daughter, Crystal, to the school bus in the morning. Then she had called one of her friends between 10 to 10:30 a.m. When an autopsy was performed on Wilma, they determined that her time of death had been anywhere from 10:30 to 11:15 a.m. For whatever reason, Wilma had gone out to the cemetery after her phone call and had ended up getting murdered. There had been multiple gunshots, but her cause of death had been the gunshot wound to the head. Wilma Cheeks was born on April 4, 1947, in London, Kentucky. She was the daughter of Stanley Lech Lawson and Flora Chadwell Lawson. She had married her husband, Albert Glenn Cheeks, in 1966. They had met in grade school and had been high school sweethearts. Albert had joined the National Guard, and after he'd gone through basic training, he'd started working in Connorsville. The couple later moved to Williamsburg. Albert started to work at Richmond Tobacco Co. They built a home on Round Barn Road. They'd go on to have 3 children together, Crystal, Kevin, and Keffany. Wilma had been a Sunday school teacher. The family had been active members in the Free Pentecostal Victory Tabernacle Church in Richmond. She had directed Christmas plays for the church and was liked by a great deal of people. During the early stages of the investigation, the police started to investigate Wilma's family members in case one of her family members were potentially involved in the woman's death. The police have not revealed any information about the interviews. A few weeks after Wilma had been murdered, the woman's family members cut off all contact with her husband, Albert Cheeks. When reporters contacted the couple's 3 children, Kevin refused to comment on the matter. He was living in Richmond, Kentucky at that time. Keffany had moved to London, Kentucky, and she refused to answer the reporters' phone calls. The 3rd child, Crystal, was a high school student who still lived at home with her father. Wilma's sister, Deborah Bray, had been extremely distraught to learn of her sister's death. Wilma had been the oldest of 6 siblings, and Deborah had been the youngest. She recalled fondly how caring Wilma had been and had always looked out for her younger siblings. According to Bray, her sister didn't have enemies. She'd been heavily involved in the church and tried to live a Christ-like life. Wilma had always kept a neat house and made sure to have home-cooked meals on the table when her family returned home each night. Deborah had noted that the day her sister had died, Wilma had been in the middle of folding laundry. Wilma had left the house in a hurry, leaving the rest of the unfolded laundry in the basket. That was unlike her, to leave a task unfinished. It is unknown what had happened to get Wilma to rush out of the house like that. Deborah Bray had been trying to do her own investigation into her sister's unsolved murder. She desperately needed answers. Bray said the following: "I was really numb. It doesn't make sense." Wilma's mother-in-law, Sally, was devastated at losing Wilma. They had been extremely close, and Sally described Wilma as being her best friend. Despite the fact that Wilma's family, the Lawsons, had cut ties with Albert Cheeks, Sally was still in contact with Wilma's parents. She refused to discuss Wilma's murder with them, or with her son. This is what Sally had to say about her son, and the loss of her daughter-in-law. "Albert wonders who done it and why. He never talks to me about it, and I don't ask him. I loved Wilma." After Wilma's loved ones had been informed about the woman's death, the minister from their church had gone to the Cheeks family home to help them through the grieving process. Albert Cheeks had been crying and shaking, distraught at losing his wife. The minister, Shepherd, recalled that he and Albert hadn't spoken much during that time. The next day, Albert opened up more to him, stating that he had no idea what had happened to his wife. One of the reasons why Wilma's family had cut ties with Albert Cheeks was because he'd chosen to marry his co-worker, Darlene Dunn, only 10 months after Wilma had died. They thought that it was much too soon for him to move on from his wife's death and start dating a new girlfriend. Emotions were still raw at losing Wilma so suddenly, and it was only made worse by the fact that death was still unsolved. Her killer was still out there, walking free. Wilma's family and friends didn't even know why she had been killed. Wilma's relatives, the Lawsons, decided to take up the matter of Albert remarrying with him in person. Wilma's relatives had tried to go to the wedding to stop the couple from marrying, but when they arrived, They discovered that a pickup truck had been strategically placed at the end of the driveway to prevent uninvited guests from getting in. The Lawsons were extremely upset that they couldn't get in. They drove up and down Round Barn Road in front of the house while the wedding took place. Later, when they had gone into town, the Lawsons plastered Fountain City with posters about Wilma Cheeks' unsolved murder. They posted them along the Fountain City Pike as well as Round Barn Road. Wilma's family wanted to get as much attention about her murder as possible, hoping that her murder would eventually be solved. Wilma's family weren't satisfied with the police investigation. They decided to offer a $25,000 reward for any information that would lead to an arrest in her murder. They had hired a private investigator so that they could try and keep tabs on any suspects in the case. The PI had dug up some new information in the case and had shared the information with the Lawsons, and the PI stated that they planned to share the new information with the police. Bray stated that, "We don't want to do anything to mess up the investigation. We haven't given up. The murderer is still out there." Wilma Cheeks' husband survived her by decades. He died on September 30th, 2018 at age 71. Once he had married his second wife, the couple had had a few more children. Wilma Cheeks' father died in 2009 at age 82 years old. Her mother died in 2015 at age 85. Both of her parents had held on to the hope that they would one day get answers in their daughter's case, but they never discovered why she had been murdered. Wilma Cheek was laid to rest in Willow Grove Cemetery, the same Fountain City Cemetery where she had been found dead. Her family had tried to get her transferred from the Willow Grove Cemetery to Kentucky, as that was where the Lawsons were from, but her family's request was denied. The family visited her headstone every year and decorated her grave. Wilma's brother Albert traveled through the area and visited her grave frequently. Every time the family visited her grave, they had to drive through the 2 pine trees where her body had been discovered. Wilma's father, Stanley Lech Lawson, had been at home when he'd gotten the call from police about his daughter's death. For months afterwards, he had been angry and confused about losing his daughter. He said the following, "It's been a dirty deal. Sure, you get upset, but we don't know who the killer is. We'd just like to find out." The investigators have been continually trying to solve Wilma Cheeks' murder throughout the decades. DNA evidence from the crime scene has been resubmitted to the state police lab in hopes that a DNA profile could help solve the woman's murder. Wilma Cheeks' murder is still unsolved to this day.